Rich Rowley is Rich Rowley is an inventor advisor for Tech Futures Lab and loves challenging the status quotes. He is an expert designer in thinking and building innovation with businesses. Rich, thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you for having me. It's a little bit scary, but hopefully lots of fun.
I want to start off with some lightning round questions so my audience can get to know you. What is the strangest food you've ever eaten?
Hamster.
Seriously?
Yes.
When was that?
In South America a long time ago.
Did they cook it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't like, they cook it. It's like on a stick. Oh, I've eaten crickets and things like that as well in Cambodia. They're really nice. The hamster just tasted a bit like chicken. Yeah.
What is the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
Open my eyes.
Instead of that?
Then it depends. Sometimes I'll get up and go and walk the dog, or sometimes I'll get up and read through some articles on Medium.
What is something we could not find about you online?
Oh my gosh. Lots of things. I make acid house music.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Rich. So where did you grow up and what was your favorite memory as a kid?
I grew up in a city called Stoke-on-Trent in the UK. It's like a very poor socio-economic area in the kind of North Midlands. I've got mixed memories about Stoke. There's a lot of things that I miss about the place, but also a lot of things that I don't miss at all about it. So my favourite memory as a kid, how old are we talking as a kid? I mean, when I was young, I think probably one of my favourite things was the first time I ever heard acid house music, and that kind of changed
How old was that?
my life. I would have been 17. Does that still count as kid? Is that too old?
Teen. So kid 9, 8,
Gosh, when I was
10.
young, I don't know, family holidays with my mum and dad, yeah.
What did you think you were going to be when you were growing up?
I never had a clue because I always felt like I was a bit of an alien and a bit weird, and I kind of didn't really fit in a school box very well. So yeah, I didn't. Some people are like, I want to be a doctor or I want to join the army. I genuinely had no clue what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And kind of, I mean, it's like now through work I've found a purpose. And that's really important to me. And that's a really good thing. And I do lots of different things now. It's hard to explain exactly what it is I do. But it's lots of different things, but they're all about trying to make New Zealand and the world a better place, particularly for people who are a little bit different like I am.
You've had an you've had an interesting career. Can you tell me about that journey?
How honest do you want it?
As honest as can be.
All right. So I didn't do particularly well at school because I didn't really enjoy school, and basically, acid house music happened when I was quite young, and I sort of fell in love with music. And there's a lot of things that go hand in hand with that. So a lot of drugs and parties, and I still love the music. Don't do the drugs anymore. So that was a big part of my life for quite a long time. When I was in my early 20s, I sort of decided I'd better get my act together a bit. And me and a friend, Tess, thought it might be a good idea to become lawyers. So we just applied to the local university as adults and got on a law course, and that was...
How did that go?
Well, I mean, I went to the first lecture on the first day, and this guy stood up in a suit and read out of a textbook, and I thought, well, sod that. I've got much more interesting stuff to do with my time than listen to this. So I managed to scrape through and get a law degree, but I never went back to university. I just used to go in for basically 5 days a semester, write an essay every day, and do a little bit of revision before the test. So I got a law degree. It wasn't a great one. I managed to become a lawyer because the year that I qualified, the Law Society in the UK brought in a minimum wage for trainee solicitors. So there were lots of law graduates and no law firms wanted to pay them to do training contracts. So I put on a suit and knocked on doors and said, give me a job, don't pay me. And eventually some people said yes, and I became a lawyer. I didn't really enjoy it because I thought it was about helping people. It turned out it was about earning fees. And also, I used to kind of look a lot at a lot of 40 and 50-year-old lawyers, and I just used to think, God, I don't want to turn out like that when I'm older. So I left. I did a couple of jobs in corporates. I worked for a friend who had a big national car leasing company. That was lots of fun. I drove lots of really cool cars and went out for lots of nice meals. I worked for a kind of marketing company when the internet was just kind of taking off, so that was a little bit interesting. Then I sort of fell in love with computers. So I used to, from my misspent youth, so I used to go to these acid house parties. So I loved going out dancing, and then I learned how to DJ, and then I got into making the music, and that got me into computers. And then I decided that I wanted to go and find out more about computers. So I ended up going back to university, and I got a master's in computer science. For my project, I built a system for a bunch of schools, and I remember thinking, wow, school's cool now, and I love computers, so I'll become a computer teacher. But I'm a bit of a dick because I became a secondary school teacher, and I turned up on my first placement at school just to find out it was basically the same boring crap that I'd been forced to sit through. They just had a few shinier toys. So I taught in the UK for a little bit. I've moved to New Zealand 13 years ago. I taught at the Decile 10 school on the North Shore, Decile 2 school down in South Auckland. I was doing lots of stuff around networking infrastructure, but also e-learning and moving these big traditional Microsoft schools to Google, which is challenging. And I was pretty much over it all. And then one of these magical life events just happened. I got home from work one day and my ex-wife said, oh, Frances Valentine has been in touch. She wants you to go and see her. And I knew that Frances had just set up this company called the Mind Lab, which was all about trying to change the education system. And I just thought she wanted to see me about taking some kids from the school I was working at to the Mind Lab, but I kind of turned up at this cool, funky building on a really crappy winter's night. And I walked in and there were 30 odd teachers there, doing robots after school, and they were smiling and they were laughing and they were having fun, and I'd never seen anything like that. And Frances is really straightforward. She just sat me down and said, I need you to work for me, and I just said yes. And that's been a very, very magic experience.
What time did you get home from there?
I don't know, mate. It was about 8 o'clock, so they used to be there till 8. It didn't. I didn't even have to think about it. She asked me, and I said yes. I didn't care about money or anything. It was just felt right, and it's been amazing. So I now work for Tech Futures Lab, which is kind of like a bit more corporate focused. So I no longer do all the stuff with schools and teachers so much. I do a little bit of that for a couple of personal projects, but yeah, it's been a weird journey.
You were involved with the Tech Futures Lab. How did you become involved with them?
Well, that's it. So I was working at the Mind Lab there. We used to do lots of classes for kids, and we had a postgraduate certificate for teachers that I worked on, which was amazing. And then Francis set up a new business called Tech Futures Lab, which was more focused. They operate a master's course, which is kind of, you get a lot of people from professional backgrounds coming to do that master's. And also at the Mind Lab, we'd started getting big companies coming in and wanting to, it started off, they wanted to come and do a bit of team building and stuff, but we also used to do, you know, some stuff around design thinking and things that we do with the teachers, and we began to do that with corporates. And gradually, I just kind of ended up at Tech Futures Lab working more with the corporates. So yeah, it was, there was no intent in any of it. It was just beautiful and serendipitous.
You talk a lot about disruptive innovation. How do you define that?
So that's a really challenging question to answer. So I'm going to answer it in a very, very weird way. So if you come to do a workshop with me at Tech Futures Lab, I always start by playing a game. And it's a game called the Ball Game, and it's supposed to be about self-organizing teams, and it's supposed to be about working in an agile framework, which means that you iterate quickly and you learn quickly and you can make really fast iterative progress. And the mad thing about that game is it doesn't matter who I play it with, everybody plays the game the same way. Everybody. It doesn't matter who they are, how old they are, where they're from, what culture they're from. They all play the game the same way. And in group contexts, people tend to think very similarly. And you do get people who have different insights into how to play the game differently, but they don't get listened to. And that's where disruptive innovation comes from. There are people in groups who do think differently. Quite often they're not heard. And part of what I do with organizations is to get them to understand that that happens. It's okay that it happens. It's just normal. But actually, to begin to really innovate and think differently, you actually have to begin listening to the people who have different ideas.
What changes and developments are you keeping an eye on from our region?
Wow. Lots. I mean, lots of stuff to do with...
You don't need to name all of them.
Well, lots of stuff to do with technology. I mean, I've got a general interest in a huge amount of technology, and I'm really fortunate that on the master's course that I work on, candidates all have individual programs, and they'll involve all sorts of different technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchain. And it's really great because I get the privilege to sit in a room and listen to these amazing people who've gone out and done research on all these technologies. It's like I learn more from them than they do from me all the time. And I've got an interest in all of it. I've got an interest in how the nature of technology is changing everything about society and how it's actually... I think it's a really optimistic thing. I think the world is quite often, there's a lot of stuff that's actually really a bit shit. And I think that technology, the technology we've got now and the technology that's coming is a really great opportunity to change a lot of things for a lot of people. So I'm really interested in social change, and I'm learning more and more all the time about indigenous beliefs and values and the importance of them and how we can go back, bring more of them into a wider, like more Pakeha society, because they're actually nice humanistic values. And yeah, so lots of things. So that you know, I have ADHD, which people think it's like an inability to pay attention. Actually, it just means like I can't be bothered with boring stuff. But like I've got lots of diverse interests that I pursue a lot. Oh, also practical psychology and philosophy, and yeah,
Eyebrows.
yeah, there's lots of stuff that I never thought I'd have any interest in that I'm now deeply fascinated by.
Who do you admire for successful disrupting and in an industry? How have they done it?
I mean, the first person that I'd have to say is the founder of our organisation, Frances Valentine. I find it a bit hard to talk about her sometimes. I'm quite in awe of her. I mean, she's an amazing businesswoman, and she's just got this purpose to try and change New Zealand society. So she's, trying really hard to change the school system and to change education so that what kids leave school with is they're going to leave school with what they need to have a fulfilling life when they leave school. And that's not necessarily a bit of paper saying you can do maths, English and science. And I admire her because she's tough, but she's kind, and she's the culture that we have at work it's the only genuinely inclusive workplace I've ever been in. Yeah, I mean, Frances, I'm just in awe of her, who she is and what she does every day.
What should business be doing? What should businesses be doing What should businesses be doing now to future-proof their workforce?
Right. Well, once again, there are lots of things, and it's incredibly complex because there's this thing called homeostasis, which is the propensity of a system to remain the same. So when things are changing, systems kind of fight back and want to stay the same. So we've got organizations are hierarchical and they're siloed, and this siloing thing, people actually silo themselves without even realizing it. So it's not even that organizations reinforce that by how they make teams work. I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff. I mean, but there's things like lifelong learning, growth mindset, actually being aware of the kind of changes that are going on. I mean, Frances has got a wonderful metaphor analogy, and she says, when you're working in an industry, it's like you're in a forest, and when you look around, all you can see is, the tree trunks, and and it's busy, because you're just trying to keep going, and it's hard, she says, but it's important sometimes to find a big tree and climb up it and take a look around at what's going on. And people don't often have the time to do that. I think that's really important. It's in the years that I've been at the Mind Lab and Tech Futures Lab, it's been really great because that conversation has actually moved on an awful lot now in industry. I think most organizations and industries are aware that technology is really changing things. I think it's really understanding that technology isn't a solution to any problems. In actual fact, people are, and that if an organization can really figure out how to leverage the power of its people and to give them a purpose that matters, that's when everything changes. You know, it's like I work for an organization with a purpose, and it's the most profound thing ever. I get up every morning, I'm excited to go to work. You know, I don't mind working with people that I find incredibly challenging. If I work with some people who like really challenge my thinking every day. If I was in any other organization without the purpose, I probably wouldn't give them people the time of day.
Yeah.
But because I work for an organization with a purpose, it actually, I kind of force myself to listen to them. I don't always agree with what they say, but actually they have an influence on me. So it's like finding more of a purpose and really understanding that your actual power as an organization is in your people. They're the best thing that you've got, and actually if you start using them better and giving them more meaning in work, then magic stuff can happen.
With everything happening in the world, what should entrepreneurs keep focus on?
Wow. Just thinking and ideating and not being afraid of ideas. I mean, a lot of people that I meet have this thing called idea bias. So when I'm doing design thinking, it's funny, when you do it with groups of people who don't kind of ideate every day as a job, people find it actually really hard to do. So, I mean, entrepreneurs just need to keep thinking, coming up with ideas, sharing them, finding those other people who can add to those ideas. And I think the other thing is, I wish a lot of entrepreneurs would actually stop chasing money. One thing that actually I find really quite offensive is kind of glorification of obscene wealth. Like, you know, a lot of people would hold somebody up as like Jeff Bezos as, you know, this amazing entrepreneur. You know, he makes a lot of money out of selling people stuff that they don't really need. He probably, you know, doesn't pay his taxes like he should, you know, because they've got the ability to find ways of mitigating the tax. And I'm a bit of an anarcho-communist, by the way. So I just think that entrepreneurs should think of a different way of doing business, which is more aligned to kind of kaupapa Maori values that we have in New Zealand. So they have this concept of quadruple bottom line, which is that if you have a business, it's okay to make a profit, but at the very least, you shouldn't be harming the environment. And in actual fact, you should be making the environment better. And also the community, you shouldn't be doing at least not harming anybody in the community. And in fact, what you should be doing is adding value to the community, and also the kind of spiritual nature as well. So I think entrepreneurs should begin to get a more balanced view of what it means to have a successful business, and that's actually something beyond just making money. And I think it's really gratifying because there is actually a noticeable big change globally in that. So it's great, and I just wish more people who were starting businesses would think more deeply about those kind of things.
What culture change do you think we need to see in New Zealand to help young business people thrive?
Wow. That's a really great question and really put me on the spot. I mean, a hell of a lot, really. I mean, it's, you know, and in a lot of schools try to. There's a part in the New Zealand curriculum that talks about, you know, having enterprising kids leaving the system, and actually, it's really hard for kids to leave the school system with entrepreneurial mindsets, because schools don't really operate in the real world. It's like schools just get money from the state. The private schools, yeah, all right, they do run like a business, but still it's a very strange business maybe. And I think actually, there's an enterprise curriculum, a business curriculum. I have not looked at that in a while, but actually last time I looked at that curriculum, the kind of stuff that they talk about bears very little relationship to the stuff that I know new startups are doing and thinking. I don't know. I think there needs to be more support in school for the kind of kids who want to do that. I think there needs to be more financial support as well for startups, particularly for young people. That's changing. I've got a friend, Vivek, who's in his early 20s, who's phenomenal, who's, doing a great job of this, but it would be great to see even younger people getting amounts of money, because young people have amazing ideas too, and they just need help and support and to actually actualize it sometimes. So there's lots of stuff, and I think the main answer to that would be that people genuinely need to reconsider what the purpose of school is. Is it for churning out kids who have got a bit of paper that says they can do English, maths and science, or is it about giving kids like the skills and mindsets they need to do whatever they want, and that's hopefully set up a business and change the world?
What is a really important issue right now that is not being talked about as much as it should be?
Right, easy. Neurodiversity. So I have ADHD, and it's been this is part of my journey at the Mind Lab. So when I found out about my ADHD, I didn't find out until I was an adult. And when I did, I read a bit about it and I was like, wow, that explains a lot. But I was embarrassed by it because it's a deficit and it's a disorder and all the other things that have with it are comorbidities. So I never told anybody because it's embarrassing. But actually at work, I had some stuff happen in my personal life, and long story short, one day I told my boss, Frances, about it. And she just said, I knew, and I was like, I thought I was better at hiding it. But she said, I knew you were different. I didn't know what you'd got, but that's why I wanted you to work for me. And that was a really pivotal moment in my life because it made me kind of reframe my thinking about my diversity. Well, I mean, I look like a privileged white male, but in actual fact, I'm diverse, neurodiverse. I think differently. That's why I didn't do very well at school. And that's why pretty much in every single job I've done up until I went to work for the Mind Lab, I've always really struggled. It's been very, very difficult and challenging. But now I work in an environment that is inclusive and I'm supported and I'm fulfilled and I thrive because I just get to do the stuff that I'm good at, and I'm discovering that I've got my different brain actually, and the way that I think differently does add value to our organisation, and that's quite a mad thing. And so I'm working on personal projects around trying to change the way that schools, parents and corporations think about neurodiversity, and instead of seeing it as a deficit, in actual fact as seeing it as the potential for innovation, because everybody talks about, we need to think outside the box. And well, every organisation's got neurodiverse people working for them, and those people, if you believe in boxes, their heads are in different boxes, and we don't really leverage that. So yeah, I think it's becoming easier to talk about, which is great. 5 years ago, nobody was really talking about it. Now it is becoming more talked about, and that's really great because it's an area of diversity that I think hasn't really been touched on yet, and it's very important.
Who inspires you?
Man, Francis. Basically, everybody who I work with, I am blessed and in awe of the people that I work with at Tech Futures Lab and the Mind Lab. They're phenomenal. And I get like imposter syndrome quite a lot, just thinking like, how the heck am I here with these people? The candidates that come on our course and all of the teachers in New Zealand who got off the backsides and did our postgraduate qualification, they inspire me. They make me feel that actually we are doing lots of good stuff. And I suppose, like my friend Damon, who's probably the best man I know because he's incredibly humble, but he has a beautifully different brain and he thinks about things differently. And he was really the person who... he made it okay at our work to make yourself vulnerable and be yourself, and I have so much admiration for him for doing that. He's very humble, but I think he's incredibly courageous, and he's the best man I know. So he's an inspiration to me.
Okay, final question. What is something that has surprised you the most from your journey thus far?
On a personal level, that I now stand up in front of groups of people and talk to them and run workshops, because I've got an anxiety disorder and it terrifies me, but I've found that actually I've got the ability to do it. Once again, it's that purpose thing. So on a personal note, that, and then I'm just constantly surprised every day at work just by the kindness and generosity and just hope for the future that there is. I live in a weird bubble of optimism, which is incredibly nice, and it's a cool place to be.
Thank you so much for joining me this week, Rich. If people are keen to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Oh, wow. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm like Rich Rowley, disobedient since 1970, or like at Tech Futures Lab. Just have a look at the website and reach out to us there.
Thank you for joining me again on Groundbreaking Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the really cool questions. They were great.
Do you have anything on the weekend?
Do I have anything on at the weekend? My partner is working, so she is going to be doing 2 night shifts at the hospital, so I will be hanging out with the kids and doing lots of fun stuff like baking cookies tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to.
Chocolate chip?
The deal was that they can go to the supermarket and choose their own fillings.
Don't burn down the house.
Hopefully chocolate chip. I'm actually a reasonably competent chef because my dad was a chef. I love cooking. It's fun. So, yeah, how about you?
So tonight at 8, I have my cousins coming over to my house, and then on Saturday I have a pool party at my friend's house.
Wow.
With all his friends, and then the rest is just chillaxing.
Nice.
And then
busy
Saturday
social life.
night I'm having a barbecue at my friend's house.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Nice, good. I'm a little bit antisocial because I struggle with people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.